3 truths of life according to Zannah. 1, watermelon is the best fruit hands down. 2, the old myth about a watermelon growing from a little seed into a full-size fruit inside your belly is just that, a myth. Trust me, I have eaten 1,000. And lastly, there is nowhere on earth hotter than a North Carolina watermelon field in the middle of July. You see, that last truth, I learned that a few summers ago during a family picture. Now, take a trip with me back to the day of the picture. My brother and I are being photographed in my dad's watermelon field. We have my mom fixing my hair, the photographer telling us to turn our head in awkward positions. Sweat is dripping from my eyebrows into my eyes, and the watermelon vines are scratching my legs. The whole time I was there, I was thinking about those large, sweet watermelons. And no, not just that I wanted to crack one open and eat it, but about their roots. The part that holds them in the ground, the part that gathers their nutrients, the part they can't live without. We never see them. And the first purpose of those roots is to gather the water and nutrients that the plant needs to grow. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to attend the Washington Leadership Conference, otherwise known as WLC. When I arrived in Washington, D.C. on Monday, I was assigned a small group leader by the name of Katie Martin. That held no significance to me on Monday morning, but by the end of the week, Katie and I had grown so close, learned our sense of fashion was so identical, and learned that our backgrounds were so similar that it was almost scary. When it was time to go home on Friday, each WLC participant was given an identical metal key that symbolized unlocking our potential. But when it was Katie's turn to hand me my key, she began to dig in the bottom of the same box that she had pulled from the top of for everyone else. And then she pulled out a key. This key. Looked at me and said, "Zannah, a few years ago I came to WLC too. And my small group leader told me that one day I would find someone that I wanted to invest in. And that person is you." As I was standing there, nearly moved to tears, holding Katie's key, a different size, shape, and color than all the others, I realized this week was different. It was different because of Katie. She didn't just support me, she invested in me. You see, if Katie was to have just supported me during the week, she would have been nice. She would have maybe directed me across those crazy crosswalks in Washington, D.C. traffic and made sure I was in my hotel room each night at 11. But instead, Katie made a vow to invest in me. Although she is in South Carolina and I'm in North Carolina, whether it's a Snapchat, a text, FaceTime, or an in-person visit, Katie and I communicate more often than not. And she continues to help me gather those nutrients that I need to grow. Love, self-confidence, passion, humility, humor, and more. Katie has been intentional in creating and fostering our relationship, which has made all the difference. What if we were more intentional about every single relationship in our lives? It means we could find relationships at soul-deep levels instead of skin-deep perceptions. Love your neighbor and treat others how you want to be treated aren't suggestions. How are we supposed to love our neighbor if we don't know our neighbor? Surrounding ourselves with people that invest rather than support allows us to gain a larger, stronger root system. And the second purpose of roots, whether it be for people or plants, is to hold them in the ground so that when bad weather wears them down, they can stand back up and continue to grow. I learned this when a storm completely flattened me. It was August 22nd, 2016. I had just returned from a back-to-school family vacation, had my back-to-school haircut, back-to-school routine doctor's appointment, back-to-school supplies, and most importantly, my back-to-school attitude. 7 days before the start of my sophomore year of high school, my mom got a phone call that wasn't so sweet. You see, that back-to-school routine doctor's appointment resulted in some not-so-routine testing, which resulted in some not-so-routine results the next day. "Hey, Mrs. Tyndall, this is Dr. Galati. How are you?" "Good. How are you?" "Good. Hey, look, we got those results back from Zannah's tests yesterday. Yeah, it looks like she has a mutation on her MLH1 gene." MLH1? What is that, and what does it mean? "Yeah, well, it's really complicated, but basically it looks like she just inherited a mismatch repair mutation on that gene, and in short, basically, Mrs. Tyndall, I am so sorry that I have to be the one to tell you this, but Zannah has stage 2 colon cancer." When my mom shared that conversation with me, my immediate brain response: I will never graduate from high school. I will never get married or have kids. I will never watch my siblings grow up or my parents retire. I'll never get a job or drive a car or go to college because I'm going to die at 15 years old because of cancer. But just as that storm was raging above the ground, I was reminded more than ever that my strength was in my foundation. My strength was in my roots. My roots were made up of people near and far: community, family, friends, FFA chapter, teachers, peers, mentors, people who I had never heard of. Immediately they kicked into action. No task was too difficult and no storm was too big to break the encouragement and love they poured out. My roots showed me there is a difference between surviving and living. These people didn't just pour out these amounts of encouragement and love for me to just survive. They propelled me to live. To assume that horribly negative mindset was so selfish. To initially overlook the people that were willing to fight this battle with me was so selfish. My focus was surviving. But when I decided to embrace my roots, my focus turned to living. See, I didn't just have a life-altering procedure. I didn't just lose a colon. I didn't just stay out of school for 3 months. I didn't just enter remission. I found Zannah. If I would have only survived, I would have stayed out of school for 3 months, returned and carried on like nothing ever happened. But the difference was I learned how to live. Since then, I got my driver's license, continued to participate and serve in the FFA, watched my siblings grow up, graduated high school, and last fall began my education at North Carolina State University. This is living. It isn't difficult to live. In fact, it's just normal to survive. Surviving occurs when we are struggling alone and barely getting by, making just enough money to pay that next bill, showing up just in time for practice, being just as prepared as we have to be for that next exam. That's surviving. But roots allow us to live. They allow us to change our perspective from this is too difficult to this may take some time, from I give up to I'll use a different strategy. Roots allow us to live rather than to survive because roots don't battle the storms for us. Roots battle the storm with us. We can't enjoy one of those sweet North Carolina watermelons if first a little seed doesn't put down the effort to establish a strong root system. And we can't be all that we were meant to be if we don't first put down the effort to establish a strong root system. Remember those 3 truths of life according to Zannah? That watermelon's the best fruit, the myth is just a myth, and that there's nowhere hotter? Well, there's a 4th truth of life according to Zannah. We are who we are because of who we come from. Therefore, it is crucial we create a root system made up of people that help us gather those nutrients and those people who hold us in the ground when the storms come. Those people who invest in us rather than support us. People who allow us to live rather than just survive. So who are those people in your life that make up your root system?